Hi, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Thanks for joining us for this Getting Started with Sitebulb live training session. We're just going to jump straight in. Hopefully everyone is here, and if not, by the end of my introduction, once we start the demo, hopefully everyone's here. So welcome. My name is Miruna. I am Sitebulb's Customer Support and Success Specialist. So if you've submitted any support queries or anything recently, you've probably dealt with me. I'm always in the support inbox. In today's session, we're going to try and kind of cover the foundations for successful auditing and efficiently finding insights with Sitebulb. So this is geared towards your new users or anyone that wants a bit of a refresher in using Sitebulb. We're going to go through setting up successful audits and understanding the Sitebulb workflow to find key data points. Just a little bit of housekeeping for you. We've got a Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please pop them in there and we can answer them at the end. We're going to have about 5 minutes for questions at the end of the session. We also have Patrick, or CEO, in the chat who is going to help us through. He's going to be sending some links and also answering some of your questions if they're kind of like just a quick request for a link or if you just need something from us. And then you can also, just keep an eye on the chat for anything that we mention throughout the session. We'll make sure to send you a link so you can follow through. In terms of next steps, once you're done with this session, you can head to our help center, which is support.sitebulb.com, and you're going to find loads of resources and how-to documents that help you get a deeper understanding of Sitebulb, how to use the tool, and how to do different things in terms of technical auditing. And you can also stay up to date with our future training by navigating to our website, to the product training page. We have a lot of good stuff coming up. So alongside our regular monthly webinars that we're doing with SEO experts, we're going to start running how-to sessions on how to do different specific things with Sitebulb. So that's going to be like a good next step after this session if you want to learn more. On the 26th of February, we're running a webinar on the age of AI and structured data. So we're going to talk to 3 industry experts about structured data and how to implement structured data for the age of AI. And on the 12th of March, we're going to follow that up with an auditing structured data with Sitebulb session. So you can find all of that at the link on the screen. So that's it for the introduction. I'm going to just jump into our demo and talk you through getting started with Sitebulb. Cool. So hopefully you can all see my screen. Let us know in the chat if you have any difficulties in terms of the size of the screen. You can also use the button, I think it's on the top right of your screen, to make it full screen so you can see a bit better if you're on a small screen or a laptop. Great. So once you log into Sitebulb, you're going to be faced with the project dashboard. In this case, I'm using Sitebulb Cloud, so I'm in the browser, and obviously we've run quite a few audits here. So there's a lot of data, but you might not have any audits, or you might just have run or created a few projects. You'll find them here. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new project. The first thing that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of projects is the importance of using them in a smart way to help you organize your audits. There are no limits for the amount of projects that you can create in Sitebulb. So you can create as many as you need to organize your workflow and your data. For example, you might want to run separate performance audits for some of your website in order to just run a sample of URLs and do that more efficiently. They're also important in terms of maintaining consistent auditing over time. So you'll want to keep the same settings consistent across time on your projects in order to build that historical data that will allow you to compare audits and build technical SEO reports with the data over time. The first thing you want to do when creating a new project then is give it a descriptive name. That's going to help you identify it in the future. So I'm going to name this live Sitebulb demo just so I know that's the purpose I've created this project for. In terms of the start URL, you'll usually want to use your homepage. There might be other use cases where you start from a specific folder or directory, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead with the homepage. The next important thing on the screen is choosing your crawler type. So by default, you'll have the HTML crawlers chosen. This is suitable for most websites. It's a traditional HTML extraction, and it is the fastest option. However, if you're dealing with a website that renders some or all of its content with JavaScript, you have the option of choosing the Chrome crawler at this point. So Sitebulb uses the evergreen Chromium rendering engine, just like Google, and we regularly update the Chrome crawler to use the latest stable version of Chromium. So I'm just going to choose that and go ahead onto my audit settings. So once the screen loads, we're going to end up on the audit settings tab. And the first thing you're going to encounter is your audit data tab. So at this point, you have the option to choose what data you want in your final audit. It's really important at this point to have a clear idea in mind of what the goals of your audit are, and to only enable the data reports that you are going to need, because the reports that you enable at this point will impact your crawl time and the amount of resources Sitebulb needs to crawl. This is particularly relevant, obviously, if you're using Sitebulb Desktop, where Sitebulb is relying on the resources of your machine. There are certain reports like performance, right here, spelling and accessibility, that are particularly resource intensive. So they will slow down your crawl and use more of your computer's resources. There are also some reports that will only be available for you to enable if you have chosen the Chrome crawler. So those are the response versus render report, performance and mobile friendly, accessibility, and AMP. So if you have chosen the HTML crawler, you'll just see those grayed out. On the left-hand side here, obviously you have a bunch of tabs with different settings that you can go through, but I'm just going to mention a few important ones and then I'll let you explore on your own. The first thing is crawl sources. So by default, Sitebulb is going to use crawl website as the main crawl source. That means that it's going to take your start URL, crawl that page, find internal links, and follow those internal links, crawl those pages, find more internal links, etc., until it finds all of the internal links and pages on your site. You also have the option to add XML sitemaps and a URL list as crawl sources. By adding the XML sitemaps, for example, you're going to make sure that Sitebulb finds every page on your website. And if you have a site with poor internal linking or poor architecture, you are ensuring that Sitebulb finds those extra pages in this way, because it might not find them through internal links. The next thing that we're going to look at is crawl speed. So if you navigate to your crawl settings, you'll see that you have a few options here. It's important to know when messing with your crawl speed what your website server can handle. So by default, Sitebulb is going to be set to 5 instances of Chrome or threads if you're using the HTML crawler, and 5 URLs per second as a maximum. The instances of Chrome is essentially telling us how many requests Sitebulb is going to fire up to the server at any one time. And the URLs per second limit sets a top maximum speed that Sitebulb can reach with the amount of resources that we've given it. It doesn't mean that it will reach it, because obviously the size of speed of your server will come into play here. But that is a maximum speed that you can set. If you know that your server can handle it, you can go ahead and obviously lift that speed limit in order to allow Sitebulb to crawl as fast as it can with the resources that you have given it. Or at the same time, you can reduce this limit in order to avoid things like 429 too many requests, errors, or just avoiding hammering your server if you know it can handle it. The last thing I want to mention before we move on to the audit data is the option to limit your audit. So you can use the inclusion and exclusion rules under this tab to limit what Sitebulb will crawl and include in your audit. And this can be a really useful tool for more efficient auditing. If you're looking at a specific part of your website, or you have things like faceted navigation, where you know that Sitebulb is going to crawl lots of URLs that are ultimately not useful in your analysis, that you can limit that through here. So if you're just getting started with Sitebulb, I would recommend having a look at the settings, but perhaps just running a few audits with default settings to understand what Sitebulb does by default, and then going into resources and playing with them more. I'm going to click Start Now for my audit. But while that loads, I'm just going to jump straight into a completed audit so we can talk through the data. So once you've run an audit, you're going to land by default on the Audit Overview tab. What we're going to look at today is the Sitebulb workflow. So it's kind of our recommended way of, analyzing and going through the data. But as you gain more confidence with the tool, I'm sure that you'll find your own workflows and ways of approaching this. The Sitebulb workflow is designed to be intuitive. So our interface is designed to allow you to kind of efficiently find insights and contextualize the data in a way that makes it faster to quickly extract important data points. You'll see that every report, starting from the audit overview, presents you with a bunch of visual tables and graphs. These are particularly relevant if you're trying to share kind of quick insights with stakeholder, clients, or even the rest of your team. And you've also got key issues quickly highlighted in each report. So let's just jump into them and I'll show you what I mean. On the left-hand side of your audit overview, you've got a list of all of the reports in your audit. What is presented here will depend on your audit settings that we talked about earlier. So depending on which report you set at that point, you'll have different reports in here. I'm going to jump into the indexability report, which is perhaps one of the kind of simpler and more straightforward reports that you're going to want to look at among the first while analyzing your website. All of the Sitebulb data is contextualized in these reports, and they are kind of meant to mirror the structure of your technical SEO audits. Like I said, they all contain high-level metrics and key data in these visual tables and graphs. And from each report, each key point of data, you're going to be able to jump straight into the data itself by clicking View or clicking on the graphs themselves. So I'm going to come back to these URL lists and what they are a bit later. What you're going to see is that while every report has generally the same structure, so you're going to have something like an overview with that key data presented, they are also slightly different because, like I said, we're trying to contextualize the data by category. At the top of your report, you're going to have a number of tabs. Each report will have slightly different tabs depending on the type of data that you're looking at. You're going to have your key data usually in a URL list, and each of these URL lists are designed to show you the specific data that is relevant to what you're looking at. So things like the columns will be customized to the data you're looking at. The different reports, like I said, do have different tabs. So in the case of indexability, for example, you have a robots.txt tab that shows you the content of your robots.txt file. But I do encourage you to look at the tabs of different reports and see how you can dig further into the data from there. And finally, every report is going to have a hints tab. So hints are a group of over 300 optimization checks that Sitebulb performs when crawling your site. In each report, you're going to see specifically the hints that Sitebulb has flagged up that are relevant to this report. So I'm going to talk more about hints just in a second, but I also wanted to point out that you have your score here, which is calculated based on the hints that are relevant to this report that have been flagged up. So, like I said, every report tab has its every report has its hints tab. But if you wanted to kind of analyze every hint that has been flagged across the report, you also have your all hints tab. So here you'll find every single hint that Sitebulb has flagged during the report, And you'll see that they all have a number of categorizations. So first of all, you've got your priority tag, which goes from critical to low, depending on how much of an impact this issue might have on your site. And you've also got a type tag, which is an issue, potential issue, or opportunity tag, which will allow you to kind of understand what you are dealing with. Obviously, something that is tagged as a potential issue will probably require a bit more input from you or your dev team to truly understand whether what you're dealing with is a genuine issue or something that has been set on your website like that for a reason. So it will require some of your analysis and input. You can use these tabs to filter down the hints list by priority, by type, and you've also got a hints by report tab that separates all of these hints by report, just like you would if you were looking at the reports themselves. And you've also got, if you are, running audits regularly within your project, you're also going to have a change hints tab. So, like I said, this is where that importance of maintaining consistent settings throughout your projects comes into play, because as you're making changes to your website and fixing the issues that you have found in previous audits, you can then use the change hints tab and this data to analyze what is happening with the health of your site. So you can see how many URLs or how the URLs affected have changed across time by using the change hints tag. A few more things I want to point out in terms of the hints. Each hint card has a short summary that helps you understand what the hint is referring to. And you can use the summaries to do things like putting together reports for your dev team or your clients if you're trying to explain the importance of what you're asking them to fix, essentially. You've also got the learn more about this hint link, which will take you to a dedicated page on our website, which explains why this hint has been flagged up, essentially, why is it important and what you can do about it. Again, very useful if you're trying to share that data with other stakeholders, or even if you're trying to train yourself or other junior team members. From each hint, you can jump into a list of all affected URLs, and you can also export a list of all affected URLs directly into CSV or Google Sheets from here. So I'm going to now move on to the different way of kind of looking at the data once you've gone through your reports and your hints, and you've had that kind of like first look at key pieces of data. You can jump into the URL Explorer. So every single URL crawled by Sitebulb will be contained here. If you prefer to work with the data in bulk, or if you are following a technical SEO template and you want a bit more flexibility in the way you are analyzing your data, the URL Explorer is a good place to do that. By default, when you jump into this view, the URLs will be organized by crawl depth. So the kind of like how many links Sitebulb has jumped through in order to find each of these pages. And you can use the tabs at the top of the URL Explorer here to kind of jump through different pre-filter views of the data. So for example, if I wanted to view all of my internal HTML URLs, I could do that by navigating through them to them from here. Same thing if I wanted to find all of my non-indexable URLs, or if I wanted to find all of the pages on my site where the title tag is too long or too short or has duplicated content. As you'll see, as I'm navigating through these different views within the URL Explorer, Sitebulb is automatically customizing the columns of data that are presented to be relevant to the specific view that I'm looking at. At this point, within the URL Explorer, you'll also have the option to add and remove columns. So if you're trying to kind of cross-check data, or there's specific things that you want to analyze, you can do that from here. So you can remove the columns that are already there, and you can also add new columns of data from here. You've also got the option to use advanced filters in order to kind of filter out this list of URLs by specific points of data that you're trying to find. Both the add and remove columns and advanced filters will stay put if you export the data. So if you've applied a certain filter, if you've added certain data to this report and you export it, you'll find that in your export, and you can create that kind of customized and very efficient exports to share with your team or to use yourself in fixing these issues. Finally, we're going to have a quick look at the Link Explorer. So the Link Explorer is only going to be, the data in here is only going to be available if you've used crawl website as your crawl source. That's because this is basically like a look at all of the internal links on your website. So obviously Sitebulb will need to have had the opportunity to find and crawl those internal links. What you'll find here is data on every single link found during the crawl, and it includes key information such as anchor text, the linking URLs, and also the location on the page of each of these URLs. Just like with the URL Explorer, at the very top of the screen, you've got a number of kind of pre-filtered lists that you can use to filter out your data and analyze it. So you can look at the status of the different links on your site, the amount of anchor text, and you can also analyze the external links found on your website. All of the data that you find here will also be contained in your links report. It's obviously contained in a slightly different view, but you can jump straight into some of those links that I was showing you at the top of the report there by using these links here in the link report. So you'll see that, again, you have a pre-filter view of that data. So those are the key ways of viewing Sitebulb data. If there are any questions, we can go through them there. Just let us know. Patrick? Doesn't look like there are any questions, so that's great. In that case, we are going to leave it there. Like I said, I encourage you to visit our support.sitebulb.com help center for more documentation and how-tos that help you understand the data and how to set up your audits. And if you have any specific questions, or if you've run into any issues setting up your new reports, you can also contact us at support@sitebulb.com, and I'll be there in the inbox to help you through. Thank you so much for joining us. I think that's the end of our session. Thank you.